Hi, all. Am I audible enough now?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Okay.
Hashin,
Yeah.
you can also start recording.
Okay, madam.
I think he started,
Yes.
Natasha.
Priyanka, sir, you also can start recording by any chance because I'm leaving.
All right, right. So then I will put that recording. No
Yes.
worries. Right.
And I think if the weather continues like this, if you have the network issue, sometimes you can switch off the camera, no? Otherwise, it would be very difficult.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So then
Okay.
we'll try to make it this maximum way. If
Yes.
any challenge, I will make it switch off the camera. So
Yes.
then we'll see how it goes.
That's okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. Then I'm leaving. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries, Natasha. So actually, students, we planned this virtual session because we missed a couple of lectures. So I plan to do this session separately out of from the our continuous lecture series. So then, as a change, actually, I wanted to start this topic that's about uh, internal audit process, right? Internal audit process. As auditor, what are the, give me a second. Right. Uh, I hope I'm audible, right? So then I can only see 19 students here. Hirusha Kalpani, am I audible enough? I hope I'm audible. Right. So then we'll start our lecture that's about the strategic role of internal audit, right? So then we were discussing about external audit process. Continuously, we had detailed discussion about audit planning, audit execution, and then basically currently we were discussing about this complex audit areas like estimates and derivatives, all those things we were discussing. Meanwhile, uh, I'm planning to conduct this lecture with separately out of our common lecture series. Uh, this is a part of our syllabus that's all about strategic role of internal audit, right? So then here I'm planning to discuss basically uh, the role of internal auditor and then mainly purpose and what are the global standards relating to that function. And then as a core principle of an effective internal, uh, uh, as a core uh, principle of an effective internal audit function, basically, right? And then how we are going to arrange internal audit function in an organization. So then how we are developing a basically internal audit charter, and then internal audit is a part of a governance framework. And basically through this lecture, I'm planning to discuss why we are having internal audit function uh, and internal auditors as internal auditor, who are they, how they are planning their procedures, what is the expectation from the organization, how to manage an effective internal audit function. All those things will be discussed through this lecture. So then it is not a lengthy lecture actually. Uh, in a very summary way, I will discuss this content with you all, right? Uh, Before that, actually, it is a very positive thing you are learning this from one of a head of internal audit in a global company. As I said in last lecture, you are fortunate to learn this topic from a person who are daily doing this activity, right? So then I know each and every area about internal audit, how we are doing it, what are the challenges, how we are contributing to the organization. Not only that, if you have let's say, a global uh, network, if it is a global company, what are the controls we are having to report to the group, report to the regional parties. So then how we are managing that aspect as well. And further, what are the benefits to have, benefits of having group network once you are doing internal audit function. Not only that, I'm a internal auditor for a public interested entity, right? So that's about insurance, highly public interested entity. So then we are having a separate regulator, IRCSL. So then as internal auditor, we are having a core responsibility to report them as well, right? So then with that, all those experience will share with you all. So then that will be a very positive thing to learn about this function, right? Okay, so then topic is clear, and then the content also very clear. So then actually I will share this slide deck with you all later. So then one by one we'll discuss basic concept of internal audit function, right? So then before we are moving to the internal audit lecture, I started with this slide, this interface, right? What is this? This is the Institute of Internal Auditors. It's a global institute. Uh, it's a uh, it's a combination of it's a connected hub of internal auditors, global internal auditors to one platform. That's a global uh, institute about internal auditing, right? So then all the resources and then standards and then related quality aspects and then uh, whatever the latest news, all the things will be published by the Institute of Internal Auditors, right? So then once we are developing an internal audit charter or once we are developing internal audit procedures, right? So then we can get that guidance from the Institute of Internal Auditors, right? So then that's a global organization. So then always they are planning to helps to internal audit function in each and every country, basically, right? So then here you can see some of the latest news, right? Uh, Here actually we have that membership as well. You can do some exams and you can get the membership from the international, the Institute of Internal Auditors. And that's another certification you can get if you are willing to join with internal audit function. Basically, IIA, I a member of IIA, Institute of Internal Auditors, is a uh, international recognized qualification you can earn, right? So then you can register with this institute and then you can follow the given uh, courses and you can get that certification as well, right? So then having understanding about that, we can move to the content of the lecture. Firstly, we'll understand that the role of a internal audit function, right? So then what do you think about that? As internal auditor, we are having a very important role in organization, right? So then with this technological development and then in, increasing and then expanding the uh, internal auditor's role expanded to gatekeeper to a strategy maker now, right? What do you mean by that? Previously, sometimes internal auditor considered as a gatekeeper, gatekeeper of internal control framework, maybe entity level internal controls or functional level internal controls, right? Application level internal controls. As a gatekeeper, we had a very vital role, right? So then now, with this technological aspect, all those new strategic changes in the global economy, so this internal auditor's role changed to gatekeeper to a strategy maker, right? So then once the organization making their strategies, internal auditors can give their insights to reduce risk, right? Reduce risk. So then that is a basic understanding of the key role change in latest the current world, right? And then as internal audit function, basically we can do the internal audit function internally or externally. So then basically we can establish internal audit department inside the organization as well as we can outsource it to some outside company, right? Outside company, maybe audit firm or some professional public practice firm. So then who are having that experience, we can outsource that the internal audit function, right? So then the role won't be changed whether you are doing it internally or externally, right? The role we can define as internal auditors. It is all about third level of defense. Third level of defense. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Third level of defense. As organization, we are having set of controls, maybe operational level or maybe strategic level or business level. We have separate controls in an organization. All those controls, we can define as the control framework in an organization, right? Control framework in an organization. That control framework should be uh, operate by the entity staff members. Basically, first level uh, first level staff members, second level staff members, and then the third level staff members. What do you mean by these levels? Before we are going to these theoretical definitions, we should know that what do you mean by these levels? In an organization, uh, give me a second. In an organization, you can open a Word document. Give me a second. Fine. I hope you can see the screen. Right. So then here we have, let's say in organization, we have different levels, right? Different levels. We can draw like this. Yeah, I will show that very practical live document. No need to draw this, right? To show you. You can say that. Right. Again, I shared the uh, screen. Hope you can see that. You can see one picture, right? One picture. What is that? So then you can see internal audit, third level of defense, and then second, monitoring and reporting, second level of defense, and then first level of defense, daily risk management, operation and development. So then in an organization, basically, we are having three lines of defense. Three lines of defense. First level, second level, and third level, right? You all can see the first level, the majority of the staff, this foundation of the organization, majority of the staff represent first level of defense, right? It means sales, marketing, operation, finance, uh, all those functions, maybe procurement, admin, these functions come under first level of defense. The management, they are responsible to save controls under that operational level, right? To establish rules and procedures, to identify the risk, evaluate compliance, and then uh, ensure the information security. We have second level of defense. Second level of defense, what are the department which will represent? That will be compliance department, risk management department, or else information security, data privacy department. Likewise, we have several departments. They are doing kind of a monitoring and reporting aspect, right? And then once you have, they are like second level of defense, right? Whatever the controls under first level, they will monitor. They will monitor. And then you can come to third level of defense. Third level of defense. Third level of defense means that's all about our topic. That's about internal auditors. Internal auditors we consider as third level of defense. That department may consider as a the final layer of the organization to save controls, right? To save controls. So then number of staff members comparing to other two levels may be very less. And then what they are doing is they are checking the control environment, and then they are ensuring that any control inefficiencies are not there. Their core responsibility is to establish a establish a third level of monitoring aspect within the organization to ensure that control frameworks control framework effectively functioning. That ensure that comfort will be given through the internal audit function, right? So then they are doing a type of a risk assessment, and accordingly they will perform some audit procedures, and they will evaluate basically design and implementation and operation effectiveness of the control in the organization, right? So then that controls may be entity level controls or functional level, application level controls, right? So then what I want to say is internal audit always represent third level of defense, right? So then that can be done internally or externally. So then whether it's internally or externally, uh, that department should independent, and they have to perform audits, and they need to ensure that the internal control framework has been established, designed, operate, and maybe design, implement, and operate effectively. Plus, the monitoring aspect also should be there, right? Normally, in a control, you know that we have basically 3 stages, and we can say that 4 stages. What are they? That control should be designed and implement, and then it should be operated. Finally, there should be a monitoring aspect to that control, right? So then that process will be monitored by the internal audit team. End of the year, so the internal auditors will ensure that within the organization, what are the controls inefficiencies and what are the recommendations they have given, how they are going to rectify all those control findings. So then that's the basic understanding you should have, right? I hope you are clear. Now we can come to give me a second. Right. I discuss about the basic role of internal auditors, right? Basically, the role of internal auditors, right, will be changed according to the complexity, and then uh, according to the nature of the industry, nature of the company, right? So then that scope will be decided based on the organizational nature, right? So then uh, basically uh, uh, basically we are focusing about reviewing internal control system, risk management system, and then overall second level and first level control framework will be review and monitor through the internal audit framework, right? So then once we are dealing with this internal audit function, it is not actually commonly it is not a legally mandatory task, right? Mandatory task. So then management, top management can decide whether we are going to establish an internal audit function or not. But that's a common understanding. But as a public interested entity or a listed entity, that regulator, maybe Colombo Stock Exchange, Security Exchange Commission, or central bank, or maybe Insurance Regulatory Commission, that regulated industries, the regulator can issue a regulation to establish internal audit department internally or externally. It is a mandatory requirement, right? So then in Sri Lankan context, if it is a listed company under listing rules or central bank regulations, insurance company regulations, they will request, they have requested to have internal audit function in the organization, right? So then once you are having internal audit function, right, that should be comply with the International Professional Practice Framework, which was introduced by Institute of Internal Auditors, right? As I previously show you, that is the international governing body of internal audit function. What is that? IIA, right? IIA has issued this IPPF. What is that? International Professional Practice Framework. So then that has been defined, the internal auditing function, and then it was introduced code of ethics, right? And then further, it has introduced international standard for professional practice of internal auditing. So then they have introduced set of standards for internal audit function. So then once you are using, if you are using internal audit function in-house, these are the benchmark, these are the rules we need to follow. These are the basic standards we can get the guidance. That standard can be divided into two categories. What are they? Attribute standards and performance standards. As attribute standards and performance standards. These are the two types of standard as per IIA standard, right? So then you can see this attribute standards and performance standard. Basically, attribute standard always giving what is internal audit function, the purpose and the objectivity, and basically the quality assurance, and then the proficiency and due professional care, all those aspects. Basically, who is the internal auditor? That topic, that content will be covered through attribute standards. 1000, 1100, 1130 standard, 12,000, 1200 standard, 1300 standard. I have mentioned the topics and the summary. I'm not going to go in detail about that, the standard content. So then normally you should know that for internal auditors, IIA has issued standards. That standard can be divided into two categories. What are they? Attribute standards and performance standards. Attribute standards normally containing, so then who is the internal auditor? What is the function of internal auditing, right? That's the content we need to deal with attribute standards. Once you are moving to performance standards, so then that's clearly saying that how you are going to do auditing, how we are going to do internal audit. Basically, managing internal audit work and nature of the work and engagement planning, performing the engagement, communicating the results, monitoring process, and risk assessment, communication risk aspect, all those things will be covered through performance standard. That is about 2000 series, right? 2000 series. Normally, that discuss about, as I said, how we are performing a internal audit. So then we can get that guidance from international audit, internal audit standard, right? And then we can discuss about that internal audit function further. Why we are worrying about an internal audit function? What's the reason for having internal audit function? Basically, in other words, requirement of an internal audit function depends on these reasons. So then, as I said, if it is a you know uh, a very small company, maybe sole proprietorship, or maybe very small private limited company, we don't want to have a complex internal audit function, right? So then internal audit function requirements established and expanded that because of this agency relationship. What do you mean by that? The owners and the management of the company getting change with the expansion. If that company getting expand, once that company getting listed, the management and the ownership of the entity getting changed. Then two separate parties will govern the organization, and then the ownership with the other party. At that point, we should have it will create a requirement. It will create a requirements of internal audit function. Further, these are the areas depends on the complexity of the internal audit function. Basically, the complexity and the nature of the entity. Basically, diversity, scale of the business, right? Complexity of the business nature, whether it's a very complicated process, manufacturing process, or whether it's relates to public interest, right? So then all those aspects will relates to this area, right? Sometimes it's maybe dealing with regulators, right? It's a listed entity, or some imports, exports may be there. Likewise, the process may be very complicated, complex, right? And then number of employees. If you are getting expand as organization, number of employees may be increased. So then according to the number of employees, it's showing that the complexity of the nature of the organization that will bring you that will make the requirement of having internal audit function in the organization, right? And then cost benefit consideration. You know that internal audit function is also a monitoring control, right? Monitoring controls. Having an internal audit function, we need to incur cost, right? So then the cost we are incurring to internal audit function, the saving we are getting through the internal audit function should be a balance, right? It should be cost effective. So then having very large internal audit function with the experts and actuaries and IT expert, audit IT experts, if you're accommodating all those teams for a small entity, maybe not practical, right? Having internal audit function, that cost of the internal audit function should be saved through the monitoring improvements. The company, the internal audit team should save money to organizations by improving the control environment, by ensuring the control environment. Having this internal audit function, whatever the other risk should be reduced, right? So then internal auditors may be insight providers for the strategy making, right? So then the cost of the internal audit function will be a indicator for having internal audit department. And then changes in the organizational structure, right? Changes in key risk, and then problems with internal control system. Always our internal control system may be having many control deficiencies. If it is so, there's a high requirement of having internal audit function in the organization, right? According to the past history, we can see that number of unexplained or unaccepted events happened during the last past period, right? If it is so, there's a requirement to have an internal audit function. If we are having internal audit function, definitely we can take preventive actions for identified risk, right? So then these are the requirements Can you hear me now? Hello.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay. So then, sorry, I was disconnected. I think you, give me a second. Right. Give me a second. I want to share the screen again. Right. Hope you can see the screen. So then I was discussing about the requirements of an internal audit function, right? So then maybe you may be received a question in the exam. You are a person explaining requirements of an internal audit function to top management, right? So then what are the benefits of having internal audit function internally, right? So then what are the the issues, what are the maybe challenges of having external the external party, outsourced party as a internal audit function, right? So then those things can be tested in the exam. So what are the areas need to be considered once you are having a internal audit function, right? Once you are having a internal audit function. So then here I discuss main areas, and then we are moving to what are the objectives? What are the objectives relating to an internal audit function? So then as I discussed previously, as I mentioned previously, internal auditors playing a role as a third level of defense. As a third level of defense, we have a role. Under that role, what are the objectives? What are the core objectives? Right. So then here I have mentioned the basic objectives, right? That objectives may depend on the organizational requirements, right? The basic objective is to safeguarding the control framework as a monitoring function under third level of defense. That's all about internal auditing, right? So then we'll go through one by one. Review the accounting and internal control system. So then that's the one of a requirement. So then basically we are reviewing the accounting function and then the internal control system, as I said, right? And then examination of financial and operating information. So then we do have this data officers or maybe information management information system in an organization. And what we are doing is we are examining financial and operating information in the organization, right? And then review of the economy, efficiency, and effectiveness, right? Basically, we are reviewing the economic changes and then industry changes and then regulatory changes, and then we evaluate the efficiency of the internal controls and effectiveness of the internal controls, basically. As I said, we are checking whether the compliance with the latest regulation issued by the regulators, maybe common regulations as well as specified regulations, right? So then let's say if it is a bank or insurance company or maybe some other regulated institute, maybe some primary dealer or some insurance broker or some entity having, the educational industry related entity or hotel related entity. So then there may be specific regulations, right? We are checking that whether company is complying with these related specific regulations, right? And then review of the safeguarding of assets. In organizations, we are using assets, right? So then the management should have a responsibility to safeguard all the assets in the organization, as well as the net assets value should be increased, right? Not depreciate, right? So the net assets value should be increased. That will directly impact to the wealth of the shareholders. So then as an internal audit function, ultimate objective is to safeguarding assets in the organization, right? Review the implementation of corporate objectives. That's one of another expectation, right? Seventh one, identification of significant business and financial risk, monitoring of organization overall risk management policy to ensure it operates effectively, and monitoring the risk management strategies to ensure the continue to operate effectively, right? So then we do have a separate internal audit risk assessment process, identify different business risks, finance risk, any other risk related to the organization, maybe fraud risk or foreign currency risk, or as some other data privacy risk, or the information security risk, cyber risk. All the risk aspects should be identified and should be evaluated, the related policies, procedures, and then we need to identify the effectiveness of the implementation and design as well as the operation of the controls, right? And then we can have some of the, the focus audit. Special areas can be focus and study and give our recommendation. So then special investigation into particular areas. Example, maybe suspected fraud. If there's the areas having more fraudulent activities, that area can be reviewed more, right? Another thing is internal audit function not conducting forensic audit, right? So then maybe we are not involving with these investigations. Investigation is a post-mortem, right? So then internal audit function is the control function. Maybe our target is to ensure the control environment. So then investigation mean, forensic accounting mean, forensic audit mean, we base on the historical event. And if there's a fraud history, we study that area in detail and identify the fraud. So then that is not happening in the internal audit function, but we do have a close collaboration, contact with these investigation teams. Once there are any loopholes, any identified frauds, all the things will be shared with the investigation teams, right? So then our input, our audit report, and identify doubtful cases will be shared with the investigation function, right? So then these are the objectives, detailed objectives of an internal audit function. I think it is very clear for you all. What's the reason for having an internal audit function in a organization, right? Okay. So then having an internal audit function, what are the best practices? What are the, how we are establishing a proper internal audit division in a department in an organization? That's also a core area need to be considered, right? Basically, before we are going to one by one, I want to emphasize that as the internal audit department, currently I am heading. So then, basically, if I want to deliver a quality service, what we should have first? For me, I should be very independent. I should be very independent from the organization, as well as I should have competency and the experience, capabilities about this subject matter. Then only you can deliver a good service to the organization as the level of defense, including there's two aspects, independence and the competency. So then we have some other areas to focus, right? So then, first one, the aims of internal audit are agreed by the board. Definitely, our objective, our expectation, our scope, and then our outcome will be discussed with the board of directors, especially with the audit committee, right? So then, as you all know that in governance framework, best practices for corporate governance, right? We are having 4 different committees which will report to the board of directors. What are the committees? A related party, a transaction committee, transaction monitoring committee, and then audit committee, and then nomination committee, and then the remuneration committee. So then among this, audit committee is a key committee that will review financial aspects as well as internal control aspect, coordinating external auditors. The financial related aspects will be reported, managed through this audit committee. So then internal auditors always should have a internal audit committee as well, right? The second one, internal audit covers all areas of controls and not just accounting controls. That's the difference between internal audit and the external auditors, right? External auditors actually they are mainly focusing about what controls relating to financial reporting, right? The critical controls relating to finance, but uh, internal auditors will focus about overall control aspects, right? Overall in a organization, right? And then here we are, internal audit has whatever access is necessary to people and the documents. To have proper internal audit, they should have access for documents and the maybe the systems, right? Maybe people, system, and documents. You can put three things. Basically, in a nutshell, there can't be any scope limitations once you are doing internal audit. If it is so, if we are having internal audit, the scope limitation, we can't deliver a quality service, right? So then we should have, as a head of internal audit, all the documents should be right, and then accesses to the systems. Can we generate system reports to the independently from the system, as well as can we access to each and every head of the departments, right? Board of management members. Do we have access to that? Can we have discussion with them? Can we give that updates to them? Can we discuss our audit results with the board of directors or audit committee or board of management? So this access to people, documents, and systems should be there to enhance a quality audit, right? And then the fourth one, the head of internal audit has clear access to chairman and chief executive officer of the organization, as well as the chairman of the audit committee. That's I said. So then, as head of internal audit, myself actually I am having access to audit committee chairman, as well as CEO, as well as regional head of audit, regional audit team, regional other head of audits, as well as the group audit function, right? Regional audit managers. So then all accesses are there. Independently, I can talk to them. I can communicate with them. I can get inputs from them for the audit process, right? And then the head of internal audit reports to a senior director. This head of internal audit reports to a senior director. So then basically that's the basic requirement. Here I want to emphasize that the head of internal audit can't report to CEO, right, or CFO or risk department. That can't be happen. So then if there's any case study that discuss about head of internal audit reports to CFO or CEO or risk manager, head of risk. If it is so, that is not a independent function. What's the requirement is the internal audit head of internal audit should report directly to the board of directors, one of an independent director, or to the audit committee, or to the region, or to the group auditors, right? He should have an independent connection with them, right? And then internal audit department is independent of executive management. So then basically internal audit department can't get executive decisions, right? So then basically he should be head of internal audit and staff members should be a separate team from the executive management. And then basically internal audit team should comply with best practices and standard, auditing standard, right? IIA has established operational and attribute standard, and then maybe group or regional teams have maybe requested some additional procedures, or local regulator and the management and top board of directors has may requested some risk areas. Under that areas, we have to perform our audit procedures, right? Other thing is, if there are significant changes in the business processes, internal audit team can be consulted, right? So then internal audit can't, involve directly to the system implementation and strategy changes. Why? It will create a self-review threat. If you are a person who develop that system or implement that system, you can't do a audit, right? It will create a self-review threat. So then if you are having self-review threat, definitely your objective can't be achieved, right? ඔයාගේ වැරද්දක් ඔයා කියන්න try කරන්නේ. If it is so, it will be a inefficiency, right? Basically, internal auditors can't have operational involvement, operational decisions, right? Operational decisions. Other thing is, the results of internal audits works are clearly communicated and recommendation act upon by the senior management, right? So then results of the internal audit function should be clearly communicated, and recommendation should be communicated to the top management, right? Other thing is, internal auditors' performance should be regularly assessed, right? So then, according to the global current regulations, the internal audit function should be reviewed by a independent outside party, maybe not annually, after maybe 3 years time, 5 years time, within a frequent of time, within a period of time, the internal audit function should be evaluated, and that should be reviewed by a independent party. The requirements and the quality of the reporting, documentation, coverage of the risk areas, audit frequency, sample selection, judgments they have taken, all the things should be evaluated, and basically it should be reviewed, right? Having these aspects in a internal audit function, that will add a good value to the organization. These are the good practices of a internal audit function. I think you are comfortable with the content, right? Right. So then, once you are going to the internal audit department, once you are going to the internal audit department, you are having internal audit team members as well as internal audit head of internal audit, right? And then, what's the main responsibility of the head of internal audit, right? So then basically his core responsibility is to establish the audit strategy and conduct the overall audit plan according to the audit strategy, right? Audit strategy. So then, as we discuss in this auditing standards, audit strategy and audit plan. Audit strategy means scope, time, and direction. Scope, time, and direction. Audit plan means nature, time, and extent. So then audit plan is a byproduct of the audit strategy. The head of internal audit should decide the audit strategy match with the organization, and then that should be executed by through a audit plan. The timing and the sampling, and then scope, and then the applicable areas, not applicable areas, and then audit procedures, should be decided by the audit team and the head of internal audit. He's responsible to have that process, and then results should be communicated uh, to the audit committee as well as regional and group audit functions, right? As well as that should be updated to the management as well. So then management, basically, it is not a uh, governance related reporting. It's administrative reporting to the CEO, right? So then management should aware about audit finding, and CEO should be updated about audit finding, but CEO can't influence to the audit function, right? So then CEO can't influence to the number of audits, frequency, and then sample sizes. So then as a management, they should responsible to support for the internal audit function, right? Basically, having all these aspects, internal audit function should have a audit charter, right? That should be included the purpose, authority, responsibility of internal auditors and their basic regulation scope, and then their reporting lines, and then basically their position in the organization, right? How they are keeping these records, access to the systems, all those things should be included in this audit charter, right? So then basically objective missions of the internal audit function and scope, all those aspects should be included in the audit charter, right? I think you are clear about this aspect. So then as a head of internal audit, is basically responsible to prepare the audit strategy and execute the audit plan, and accordingly the audit charter should be developed. Audit charter should be developed, right? So then risk management function is another second level of defense, basically function in an organization, right? So then internal auditors should have proper collaboration about with the risk management team as well. So then basically internal auditors will involve in monitoring risk management systems, right? And feeding back suggestion for the improvements. So then what internal auditors do is they are evaluating the monitoring aspect of internal controls and giving feedback to improve the processes, right? Once you are having this risk management function, they want to have information about the internal control framework to establish internal control culture, the adequacy of the controls, appropriateness of the controls, right? Operating effectiveness of the controls, all those information will be taken from internal audit function. So then for that, definitely internal auditors and risk management team should have a good collaboration, right? So then both teams we can consider as a safeguarding functions. So then as a COSO framework, right? COSO framework, we should have a control environment, right? Control environment, risk management function, and then control activities, and then monitoring, all those things should be there, right? The risk management function should be there to assess the futuristic risk. For that, whatever the required information should be given through the internal audit function to identify control inefficiencies, right? So then according to the control best practices, if there are any identified loopholes, any fraud risk, any credit risk, so then we need to compare basically with the risk versus the control. අපි දන්නවා risk එකක් එක්ක තමයි හැම වෙලේම control එකක් යන්නේ. නේද? risk එකක් තියෙන තැන තමයි control එකක් යන්නේ. එතකොට අපි risk එකක් තියෙනවා. control එකක් නැත්තම් risk එකක් තියෙනවා control එකක් adequately නැත්තම්. risk එකක් තියෙනවා control එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒක operate වෙන්නේ නැත්තම්. risk එකක් තියෙනවා control එකකුත් තියෙනවා. ඒක operate උත් වෙනවා. ඒක monitor වෙන්නේ නැත්තම්. අන්නේ හැම aspect එකක්ම internal audit function එක through identify වෙන්න ඕනේ. So that's the basic requirement. And then that update should be communicated to the other safeguarding functions like risk management division, right? Risk management division. I think it is clear for you all, right? Now I am discussing about what's the link between the forensic accounting and the internal audit. Forensic accounting and the internal audit, right? So then is there any questions? So then having virtually, I don't have, the interaction. So then people, if you have questions, you can ask. Any person who are having internal audit experience, you can add some more value addition to the content. කාට හරි internal audit experience තියෙනවා නම් කියන්න පුළුවන්. මෙන්න මෙහෙමයි සර් අපි කරන්නේ. මේ විදිහට යන්නේ. What do you think about that, right? Internal audit කියන්නේ හොඳ profession එකක්, right? ඒ කියන්නේ අපිට value addition එකක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්. හරි scope එකකට quality එකකට වැඩ කරන්න පුළුවන් area එකක්. So then especially for ladies, ladies, it's a good area to focus as a profession, right? So then recently we had this internal auditors conference. As CA Sri Lanka, the Chartered Accountants Conference, we are having internal auditors conference which is conducted by IIA Sri Lanka, International Internal Auditors Association of Sri Lanka organized this internal auditors forum annual conference, right? So then you can participate to that. You can have that connection between internal auditors, all the CAEs, audit team members coming to that conference, right? So then that type of platforms are there to improve your skepticism, experience, share knowledge, and that will enhance the inputs to this internal audit function, right? So then having that connection, we can share our thought processes and risk areas, different strategies. So then that will add a value to the overall function, right? So then now we can move to the internal audit and forensic auditing. Forensic auditing is a mix of traditional accounting, auditing, and financial investigation. As a company, structures have become more complex, so have opportunities for people with specialist knowledge of those structures and controls to bypass them. Internal audit has a large role to play in helping executives to identify such vulnerabilities in internal control system by identifying and strengthening control mechanism, undertaking regular and proactive investigations, ensuring regulatory compliance, and then resolving of disputes in areas such as insider dealing crimes, improving efficiency by identifying areas of waste, detecting potential conflict of interest, right? So then once you are conducting these areas, you can help to forensic auditing, right? Actually, as internal audit, you are not conducting forensic audit. You can give insights to the forensic audit team to conduct the forensic audit. You can identify, you can communicate risk areas. Further, you have a responsibility to establish proper environment to reduce these control weaknesses, right? You should identify control weaknesses. You need to ensure that the strength and control are available within the process, right? And then those controls are comply with the latest regulations, right? There can't be conflict of interest an insider dealing, or maybe window dressing, or some time of the management override of controls inside the organization. So then that should be ensured by the internal audit department, right? So then that's about the relationship between the internal audit function and forensic audit, right? And here I wanted to highlight always internal auditors should be independent. As I said, once we are discussing these good practices for internal audit, we discussed that it should be a independent team, right? It should be an independent team, independent from the executive management. It will increase the the integrity and then the objectivity of the function, right? Another thing is internal audit team is a part of the organization, right? So that they are in the payroll, but they should be very independent, right? So then they should have authority to take decisions and challenge to the available internal control framework, right? Basically, internal audit will be trusted more by managers and staff, and hence are more likely to have sensitive information disclosed to them if they are failed to be independent. So then once having this independent audit function, so then all the departments will be volunteered to present very sensitive information to the auditors. What are sensitive information? Maybe information related to the personal data, maybe personal health conditions, salary informations, qualifications, right? And then family members' informations. All those things can be reviewed by the internal audit department, right? Sometimes company may have standard costing or some, cyber security areas. So the high sensitive areas, all those areas, the controls available, controls protocols will be monitored and evaluated by the internal auditors, right? And further, internal auditors can review these access rights, right? Access metrics can be reviewed, as well as once you are having these organizational charts, right? If there's the dual roles, right? So then all those that can be evaluated. Sometimes double hatting incidents are there. Sometimes one board member can review 2-3 different functions, right? Let's say if it is a bank, maybe your deposits and loans, both sections are handled by one director. So then one senior manager person. So if it is so, that delegation of authority may not be there. So then all those things should be identified and need to establish proper protocols and processes, right? So then moving forward, threats to independence. Basically, internal auditor should be independent. So what are the threats? Involvement in system design. As I said, internal auditor can't involve mean directly involved with system design. But as internal audit department, if there's a system implementation or system development, changes, patches, internal auditors can give insights, and then their view can be given, right? But he can't sign off. He can't get the responsibility. Why? If he's getting responsibility at that time, definitely it will create a self-review threat. එතකොට management එකට කියන්න පුළුවන් internal audit team එකත් හිටියා මේ discussion එක. internal audit team එක review කරා. එතකොට අපි මොකද්ද කියන්නේ? ඒක ගොඩාක් වෙන challenge එකක් මට. දැන් අපි සිස්ටම් එකක් ඩෙවලොප් කරනකොට මොන හරි ඩිස්කෂන් එකක් යනකොට ඔඩිටර්ස් ලටත් එන්න කියනවා. එයාලා ඔබ්සර්වර්ස් ලා right. එතකොට එයාලා කියනවා ඔයාලා ඔඩිටර්ස් ලත් හිටියනේ මේ ඩිස්කෂන් එක. But you didn't inform anything at that time. එතකොට අපි මොකද කියන්නේ? Yes, at that time we were there. So then according to the information we had, we assume that this is effective control. But once you are continuing it, we identify that as a inefficiency. So then we need to suggest this suggestion. We need to do this improvement. Likewise, we need to approach and we need to correct whatever the loopholes identified through the process, right? And then over familiarity, that is another threat, right? So then we are inside the organization, right? We are also staff with the company, and then we'll monitor through the HR department. Once you are doing HR audit, we are dealing with them, right? So then our talent development, all the coordination will be done by the HR team. So likewise, once you are having audits, there will be a familiarity threat, right? ඕක මම කරලා දාන්නම්. ඕක අයියෝ ඕක බලන්න දෙයක් නෑ. ඒ වගේ දේවල් කියන්න පුළුවන්. But as an internal auditor, you have to be very professional. You need to keep your independence, right? So then you need to keep your, your relationship should be very professional with your auditees, right? And to reduce that, we can rotate auditors. We'll discuss that later. We can rotate these auditors, and then we don't want to put same auditor for same department. Likewise, we can manage that in a very practical way, right? Reporting relationships. If you are having reporting relationships, again, it will impact to the independence, right? So then, as I said, the reporting relationship should be very independent. Maybe direct reporting to the audit committee, board of directors, region to the group. We should have administrative reporting to the board of management and senior management to the CEO, right? So the CEO, CFO, because this administrative management just for update, not for getting impact or scope limitation about our audit procedures, right? That's the main considerations once we are discussing about the independence of the internal audit function, right? And then once you are discussing independence, if there are any challenge to the independence because of above reason, as the head of internal audit, as internal audit department, we are responsible to get that safeguardings. We need to implement safeguards to reduce that threat to acceptable low level. That's a given guidelines. According to the code of best practices, we need to reduce that threat to acceptable low level. What we can do? So then the department should report to the board or to a special audit committee and not to the finance director. As I said, if you are reporting CEO or finance director, it will create a threat, right? So then, once you are recruiting team members, they should be independent, right? So then internal transfers may create a self-review threat and familiarity threat, right? And then the employees in the internal audit team, as well as the head of internal audit, can't involve with the system development, system implementation, designing systems, designing on procedure manuals, developing standards. So then he is a person having the inputs and observations, not the overall responsibility. Why? The post audit can be done by, then only he can run a post audit about that subject matter, whether it's happening it or not. If the head of internal audit who perform that area, he can't do a audit, right? And then internal auditors should have appropriate scope in carrying out their responsibilities and unrestricted access to records, assets, and personnel. As I said, uh, as I said, uh, give me a second. Give me a second. Right. And then previously I said that rotation of staff over a specific department audit should be implemented. Right. Staff rotation. We don't want to, uh, add same member to same department. Once you are having this staff rotation, will reduce that threat to some of the threats to independence. Family threat will be reduced through this staff rotation, right? So then those are the things we can do as safeguarding activities. So then according to the situation, we need to act, we need to react to reduce that threat. Sometimes, right, CEOs, CFOs relation maybe in our audit team, internal audit team. If you are putting that person to finance function audit, that will impact to the overall quality of the audit, right? So then that person can influence to that audit team member. Likewise, we need to be very careful, right? Neda. Internal audit team members ලත් එක්ක මාර close sama එක department. එතකොට close කියන්නේ මොනවද? friendship එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්, maybe affair එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන් නේද? එහෙම තියෙනවා නම් as head of internal audit, I should be very I should pay special attention on that, and you need to be alert on that, and we need to manage that situation by putting safeguards to enhance the independence, and then only you can get the correct outcome from the internal audit process. That will be a good positive things to the enhance the quality of the process, right? Then we are moving to managing the internal audit process, right? How we are going to manage it. So then what are the areas we need to focus? The chief internal auditor should manage the internal audit department properly. The department is running well. It should be have following features, right? If we are having a good internal audit department, these are the areas you need to have. If you want to do proper management of the internal audit function, these are the key areas need to be focused. These are the areas you can see. So then we have a proper authority and the responsibility. We have a purpose statement. We should have a proper, basically standard audit policy, right? And then proper planning process should be there. Proper risk assessment process should be there. According to the risk assessment, right? So then once you are doing your internal audit department, you need to assess the risk first. How you are going to assess the risk? You need to get the information from internally and outside parties, external auditors, risk department, investigation teams. Having that information, you should do the internal risk assessment. And then first you need to identify inherent risk about each and every area. And then discuss with the management about the current controls, and then identify the residual risk, right? According to the residual risk, design your audit frequency, right? And then according to the audit frequency, you can start your audits. You need to decide the annual audit plan, right? Once you are doing annual audit plan, there may be some other regulatory requested audits, management requested audits. So then you need to have resources for that as well, right? So then once you are having proper team, basically, as I said previously, we should have a proper review of the internal audit function. And then the documentation process should be quality, right? And then we need to have a proper collaboration with the other safeguarding functions and the external auditors, right? And then in the audit department, we should have proper policies and design procedures. So then as a entity who are working with the group in audit function, for us actually this audit risk assessment and then audit procedures have been illustrative procedures have been given for each and every audit object. In my case, they have identified different audit objects, maybe loans, sorry, maybe claims, maybe underwriting, maybe HR, maybe risk management, compliance, data privacy, IT security, IT governance. Likewise, in the organization, we are having more than 60 audit objects in the one entity, right? So then accordingly, we need to do the risk assessment and decide the audit frequency, right? So then having this setup, and then these are the areas need to focus. What are they? Strategic audit planning should be there, and technical audit, tactical audit planning, right? Tactical audit planning, operational audit planning, professional proficiency, and then the performance audit work, quality control and internal auditing, annual review of internal audit function. So then those are the areas need to be focused, right? As I repeatedly saying. So then having this proper internal audit function, that should be having professional competence people, and then performance should be reviewed, quality control framework should be there, KPIs also should be there, audit planning should be done according to the risk. Likewise, we should have proper control mechanism in a internal audit function. So then that's the basic understanding you should have, right? I think you are clear about that area. So then having a proper internal audit function, what are the the areas need to be focused? What are the core aspects we need to focus in? Right. Basically, we have discussed a lot about internal audit function now. I think you are okay with the content we have already discussed. And then having internal audit function, we may involve with different audits, right? Different audits. Sometimes value for money projects, and it will lead to operational assignments, looking specific parts. As I said previously, we as a group involvement to my audit function, they have identified different audit objects, right? So then that audit frequency and the risk assessment, and then our quality review, self-assessment, always monitoring by the group, right? We have given KPIs as well, right? අපි audit එකක් පටන් අරගෙන ඒක මාස ඩිලේ වෙනව නම් ඒක ලොකු ප්‍රශ්නයක් වෙනවා. ඒක අපි audit kick off එකක් තියලා working days 120 ඇතුළත ඉවර කරන්න. අපි kick off meeting එක තියලා within 2 days අපි procedures approve කරලා තියෙනවා. අපි field work ඉවර කරලා draft report එක යවන්න deadline එකක් තියෙනවා. අපි audit final report එක යවලා documentation ඉවර කරලා audit file එක archive කරන්න දවස් 5ක් තියෙනවා. Within that 5 days we need to complete it. Likewise, we are having a separate KPIs as well. Auditors also govern through a KPIs, right? Audit function also having a monitoring aspect. So then to that, we are having different tasks, different projects. That's all about value for money audits, right? And information technology related audits, best value audits, financial audits, regulatory compliance audit, fraud investigation related audit. So then we are checking the fraud investigation process, right? Not the investigation task, not the forensic account, right? So then customer experience audit, maybe uh, customer complaint process, voice of customers process, or sometimes marketing process, right? Uh, Sometimes call center related audit, right? All those things can be conducted. And then operational audit, that's really kind of a large area, operational audit. If it is a bank, maybe loans and savings, loans, FD and leasing facilities, spawning facilities, right? If it is a hotel company, uh, customer registrations and hotels booking and payments, as well as buffet arrangements, banquet facilities, all those things may be the cooperation, right? Another thing is governance and cultural based audit, culture related audit, right? So then governance aspect, maybe corporate governance aspect, as well as IT governance aspect should be evaluated. Are we comply with governance protocols given by the group or the regulator or the company headquarters, head office, right? So then all those things can be a part of our audit process. These are the areas we are conducting audits. Under these areas, we may have many sub areas, right? Many sub areas. Okay. I will show you some examples, right? I have many examples for each and every area. I will share with you all with the confidentiality. I can, as a head of internal audit, I can share my experience, but I can't share confidential information with you all. But basic to knowledge purpose, I can share some of the, some of the basic things with you all for your understanding. That's a social service, right? Okay. So then to do these audits, we have to follow this audit process. So then I have summarized here the basic audit process. As I said, basically the main task is like the external audit process, right? External audit also we had the planning, risk assessment, execution, issue the audit report, right? Issue the audit report. But here we have additional task. We have additional task. What is that? Follow-up process. But external auditors, they are issuing the management letter. They are not doing kind of a follow-up audit, right? Follow-up audit will be done by the next year, through the next year audit. They don't have continuous follow-up process. But here, internal audit process, we do the audit planning first. Once you are doing audit planning, we should have audit, timeline, scope, risk assessment, and then the staff allocation, and then the finalizing audit plan, communicating that to the audit committee, getting approval from the group, presenting that to the board of management. Likewise, we need to have proper budget. So then budget mean the expense budget as well as to the resource budget. So then number of man hours should be equal to the required man hours for identified audits. So then that should be planned. And then risk assessment should be done. Risk assessment, the inherent risk and the control risk should be assessed. And finally, you need to come up with the residual risk. According to the residual risk, you need to decide the audit frequency. According to the audit frequency, you have to decide the audit plan. Keep in mind this process, right? You are having inherent risk about audit objects, right? That inherent risk should be evaluated, identified, and then identify the current control framework, and then identify whether this control framework address that inherent risk, and then identify residual risk. According to the residual risk, you have to identify what are the significant risk magnitude and the likelihood of occurrence. Accordingly, you have to decide your audit frequency. According to the audit frequency, plan your resources and decide your audit plan, and then should communicate, and then should start it. And within the framework, it should be execute, and then it should be completed. right? So then once you are doing your audit field work, you have to have proper audit procedures and adequate sampling, adequate audit inquiries, independent testing or walkthrough test, system inquiries. You can run some queries, right? So then you can create, you can do some audit activities in a dummy environment. Likewise, you can use different audit procedures, right? Uh, and then you can have proper adequate audit procedures and gather audit evidence and properly document, and then identify observations, and then have a debrief meeting, and then uh, currently we discuss about Kanban board, right, to manage this process, as well as we are discussing about agile meeting. Agile meeting means throughout the audit process we are having short meeting is the management auditees, right? uh, Finally, once we are having observations, we can have review meeting with the management and stakeholders. That's called like debrief meeting, right? And then there are the draft report with recommendation, risk recommendation, right? Impact and the recommendation. And then currently we are saying that not actually the recommendation, recommended outcomes. So then as auditor, once we are recommending that, it will create kind of a independence issue. They can say that this was recommended by the auditors, that's why we have implemented. But you can say that recommended outcomes. So then that's a responsibility of the management, evaluate that outcome and implement it, right? You don't have a recommend the responsibility of the uh, recommendation, right? So then share that draft report with the management, give reasonable time to their feedback, and then take possible action plan for the audit finding, and then accordingly take the deadline for that, right? Keep in mind that once you are finalizing audit report, you should have a proper risk rating, right? Risk rating should be there. That risk rating, according to high risk, medium risk, low risk audit findings, should be reviewed by the auditors or the executives, and it should be given to the management with the risk rating. And then once you are having that discussion with the management, you can discuss the risk rating and you can decide the final rating of that audit objects, whether it's significant improvement needed or maybe improvement needed or satisfactory or unsatisfactory. So then that will be depend on your audit process, right? So then my request is, if you are having high risk findings, don't give too much of a the very lengthy more times to rectify. If it is a high risk finding, that should be rectified. That root cause should be identified and it should be eradicated. It should be addressed uh, very quickly, because it will create a financial loss to the organization, right? So then other thing is, I mentioned that root cause analysis, right? If there's a control deficiency, inefficiency, just you don't want to put a plaster, right? What you have to do, you need to identify the root cause of that issue, and the action plan should be address that root cause, and then the deadline should be taken from the management to address that root cause, right? Sometimes it may be the uh, user errors, sometimes system errors, resource limitations, less knowledge about the subject matter, or else sometimes the pressure, right? All those things can be impacted to the audit findings of the audit observations, right? So then you need to identify the root cause, and this action plan and the deadline should be addressed very quickly, these high risk items, right? So then after having all those things, you can issue the final audit report to the management, right? It should be uneditable mode, and it should be circulated to the management, to the audit committee, as well as to the region and to the group. And then that should be properly documented in the audit system, audit file, right? So then if any outside the authorized party, maybe the regulator or some group review team, request this audit report, basically you should share that audit report with them by mentioning the confidentiality. Rather recently, actually, you know that Allianz Life company acquired by the Softlogic company, right? At that point, my life entity audit reports wanted to be shared with the Softlogic audit team. That was a request. So at that time, we can share with them. Otherwise, we can't share because of confidentiality reason, right? So then audit reports we can consider as a highly confidential information, right? So then that's about the audit report. Sometimes through audit uh, uh, system, if you are having sophisticated audit tools, you can run the report from the system itself. You can create findings. Through that, you can do the follow-up, right? And then monitor follow-up process. Follow-up process is a additional process with compared to external audit. So then with this agreed action plan and the deadlines, our internal audit team should follow up. And then at the follow-up point, you need to check the responses from the management. You need to evaluate whether how they address the root cause adequately. Sometimes it is very factual thing, right? Agreement එකක් නැති දෙයක් වගේ නේ agreement එක sign කරා නම් okay. හැබැයි ඔක system development එකක් නම් ඔයාගේ progression එක බලන්න ඕන. reconciliation වල inefficiency එකක් නම් ඔයා monthly reconciliation දෙක තුනක් බලන්න ඕන. So then you need to check the progression and then only you can close the finding, right? සමහර වෙලාවට තියෙන ලොකුම risk එකක් තමයි මොකද්ද? Finding එකේ deadline එක වෙනකොට හදලා තියෙනවා. අපි audit report අපි follow up audit එක කළා evaluate කළ audit finding එක වහපු ගමන් ආයෙත් කරන්න නැතුව ඉන්න. That's again a risk. So then get that get that commitment to do this. අපි දැන් system development එකක් දැම්ම නම් මොකද කරන්නේ? ඒක procedure manual එකකට දාන්න. ඒ procedure manual එකට දාලා අපි බලන්න ඕනේ ඒක කරන කට්ටියගේ JD එකේ තියෙනවා. ඒකේ KPI එකක් තියෙනවා. එතකොට we are putting a control and the monitoring process also there. So then that will ensure that process will be continued without any involvement, without any third level monitoring. So then once you are coming to the next year audit, we can check it again, right? So then that's the expectation. So then this update, follow-up update should be updated to the audit committee as well as to the group as well as to the regional audit teams according to the request. If there are requests from external auditors, our internal audit report can be shared with them. As per SLA US 601 is 610, right? 610 external auditors can get support from internal auditors as well, right? If they requested to get support from us, we should be volunteered to support to them. So then our audit plan, our procedures should be disclosed to them. So then they can challenge to us and they can test our procedures and they can get a value addition to that external audit process as well. So then that's our again a core responsibility to support to the external auditors. If they have requested any information, we are liable to share that information with them. If regulator come to on-site visit, they also come and review our audit reports as well, right? So then those are the areas I wanted to discuss with you all today. Actually, we discussed about overall internal audit process, right? So the importance of the internal audit process and then regulatory environment, what are the best practices, and then once you are having internal audit process, how we are going to maintain independence, if there are any challenges, how we are going to put safeguards, and then internal audit process. Those are the things I wanted to discuss with you all. And then further adding technology to this process. That's why I told you at the initial stage of the lecture. So then our role getting changed to gatekeeper to strategy makers, right? Why? With these technological aspects, our sampling, our technological tools, always, getting advanced, right? So then we are moving from this traditional sample based to portfolio based, data analytics based sample selection. We are doing continuous data analytics. Accordingly, we do select the samples, right? And then further, the anomalies can be identified. Management override of controls can be identified through data analytics, right? As I discussed in this digitalization in auditing, so then we need to discuss about digitalization in internal audit as well. Internal audit process also getting digitalized day by day. So then that will add a more value to the auditing process as well as to the organization. So then that's all about the internal audit content. So then once we are having the physical lecture, I will do again a recap about this, and I will share some of the practical examples, practical experience with you all. So then we can complete this topic, right? So I can see 14 members. I hope you got something about the internal audit function. If you are having any questions, this is the time you can ask. Any questions? මොනවා හරි ප්‍රශ්න තියෙනවද? No. Virtual ඉන්නවා අපි කියන්නේ ඉන්නවද නැද්ද දන්නේ නැහැ එහෙමද? ගිහාන්, හිරුෂ, ශාමිකා, නුස්කා 23196227762.
Yes, sir. Still not uploaded the slides to LMS. Could you share that?
Yeah. So then tonight, actually, I didn't share this with Natasha because I wanted to do this part, the estimate part 2. Then I decided to do separate section. We can, outside the lecture series, we can complete this. That's why I suddenly complete this slide deck. I want to do some, small updates to the slide deck. I will finish it off and I will share with you all tonight with Natasha, and then she will share with you all. Then you can read through the content. So if any further clarification, we'll discuss in physical class. So then tonight I will share with you all the reading material. That's why I got, not shared with the Natasha. So then yesterday, actually, I prepared this content. So I want to add some more digitalization part and some, the regulatory aspects. So then after adding that, I will share with you all.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Additionally, sir, if we can know about the final paper structure.
Yeah, definitely. So then we have some other 3-4 lectures. Again, we are having another virtual session. Now we have completed most of the areas, right? We are in these complicated audit areas, and this parallelly, I am planning to discuss about this anti-money laundering area as well as forensic audits with you all, right? And then other thing is latest internal audit, external audit related topics, right? Want to discuss with you all. Those are very small topics. Want to touch upon with you all. I am planning to do some revisions with you all, and then further I want to do this another continuous assignments which will cover overall syllabus with you all. So then those are the plans. Definitely I will share with you illustrative paper with you all. Then you all can ready to the exam.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Anything else? මොන හරි තියෙනවද තව දැනගන්න internal audit ගැන? Internal audit කියන්නේ හොඳ area එකක් ඔයාලට තමන්ගේ profession එක expand කරගන්න. ඒ කියන්නේ ඔයාගේ future career එක decide කරගන්න. Internal audit කරන්න ආස නම් නේද? ඔයාට chartered කරනවා වගේම IIA qualification එක. International Internal Auditor qualification එක ඔයා ගන්න ඕනේ. Chartered auditor. So then that can be taken. International board එකේ register වෙලා internal audit a course එක follow කරලා it's like maybe SIMA, ACCA ඒ වගේම international body එකක්. දැන් මම basically කරනකොට අපේ දැන් මට ඇත්තටම qualification එක නැහැ. මම register වෙන්න plan කරන් ඉන්නේ ළඟදී. අපේ international group requirements තියෙනවා basic qualification එකක්. එක්කෝ AA තියෙන්න ඕන. නැත්නම් මොනවද internal system auditor තියෙන්න ඕන. SISA තියෙන්න ඕන. So then SISA hari AA hari ඒ වගේ internal audit specific qualification තියෙනවා. එතකොට internal audit specific qualification මොනවද කියලා search කරලා මට උනත් guide කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඔයාලට කරන්න පටන් ගන්න පුළුවන් if you are interested in to plan your career as an internal auditor, right? So then if you want to capitalize to earn money on this topic, so then you can decide to plan yourself. So then I can help you all to decide what are the qualification I can help you all to target and plan yourself what are the qualification, what you should do, what are the area you need to focus, and I can share my experience with you all. With that you can decide whether you are going to do it internal audit or not. So සමහරලාට කියන්න පුළුවන් internal audit කරලා ඊට පස්සේ මොකද්ද මම කරන්නේ. ඔයාට ගොඩාක් දේවල් කරන්න තියෙනවා, right? Recently මම ගියා, as you all know that internal auditors regional conference එකට. ඒකට එන්නේ ඉතින් each and every country representing that in the region, right? Maybe China, Indonesia, Thailand, and then Malaysia. So all the countries coming and they are discussing, all the CAEs coming and discussing their challenges, new technological aspects, always discussing about, this time topic was AI versus IA. ඒ කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? AI versus IA කියන්නේ artificial intelligence versus internal audit. කොහොමද artificial intelligence use කරන්නේ internal audit එකට කියන එක තමයි topic එක regional conference එකේ. So then as a small OE, actually we are not that much sophisticated and advanced to to contribute that discussion. Actually I listen and then I discuss about the challenges and all those things. Some other OEs, they have done the marvelous job. They have done different innovative things. They have think outside the box and they have used AI for in risk assessment and එයාලගේ risk identification එක AI වලින් වෙන්නේ. ඊට පස්සේ audit selection එක AI වලින් වෙන්නේ. Sample selection AI use වෙනවා. Audit communication, follow up process එක automatically communicate වෙනවා. Dashboard generate වෙනවා. Likewise, so then they have automated this internal audit process. So then we have different areas to focus in once we are moving with the technology. So then keep remember that internal audit process also getting expanding with the technology, right? Okay, that's the update. Yes,
if we identified any fraud or anything in internal audit, do we can fire him without forensic audit, or we should do